Hi guys, Andy here. One of the things I love about Android, and one of the things that I think helps it gain such massive market share, is that there's not only top-end, high, expensive devices, but there's also lower-end, budget phones available too. The device I've got here, the Vodafone Smart Ultra 6, is one of these such budget devices. But as we're going to find out, paying less doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a bad experience with Android if you buy the right budget device. So the Smart Ultra 6 is available in two different colours, kind of a silvery white like we have here, or I think there's like a white, a black and sort of a dark grey version as well. You might notice straight away, got a notification light in the home button. The other buttons do light up. I think they're possibly related to the light sensor or something, because they don't always... There we go, they're lit up now. Sorry, I just needed to touch them. Don't know if you can see that on camera actually, because of all of my lights. There we go. So the home button flashes as a notification. The design of the device is quite a sort of classy design, I would say. It's quite nice. It feels a little plastic, so the materials feel a little bit cheap. But I would say it feels very well made. So it feels pretty sturdy. You know, if it's badly made, you kind of get creaky noises. I remember some of the early HTC devices, I really didn't like the build quality. You could twist them and get all sort of weird creaky noises. But actually, this thing's pretty solid. It's 159 grams, but it feels a lot lighter than that. I don't know if that's just kind of the materials, the plasticky materials or what, but it feels pretty good in the hand actually. Although it's a big 5.5-inch screen, it's thin enough that to me, I mean I've got quite big hands, it feels pretty good in the hand. One thing to notice with the design is the speaker is rear facing. I would say it's only really got kind of an average volume at best as well, and the quality isn't fantastic. But I don't feel necessarily that the rear-facing element is a big factor, to be honest. Measured it up against the Moto G 3rd Gen, which has front-facing, and they weren't that different. Just the quality for me wasn't as good with the Smart Ultra 6, rather than sort of the volume. If we move on to, I should sort of point out as well, we've got the micro SIM on the one side. Needs the ejector tool. We've got an SD card slot on the other side. And then what else do we have? The volume buttons, the power buttons over on the right hand side, micro USB charger, front facing camera, we'll come to those shortly. That's 5 megapixel, rear facing camera 13 megapixel with the flash, and I think that's a noise cancelling mic just there as well. So talking about the actual hardware, as I think I mentioned, it's a 5.5-inch IPS LCD screen, which is 1080 by 1920, which is 401 pixels per inch, which is pretty high. You know, I mean, go back a year or two and that would have been one of the class-leading densities. And I think the screen is actually pretty amazing. Maybe it's not so visible, and possibly I need to turn, just get rid of those now as well. Turn the brightness up a little bit for the camera here, but it's a pretty stunning, I think, a pretty stunning screen generally. It holds up reasonably well in bright lights because it can go quite bright. In fact, when I woke up in the morning and I turned my phone on to check my emails, even if I dropped the brightness right down to dull, it was still too bright for my eyes actually. Having said that, so I remember I lowered it right down. I went out and about and I remember pulling my phone out, I almost couldn't see the screen. I was trying to take a couple of sample pictures and I almost couldn't see the screen. So obviously it does get dim enough. The chipset is a Snapdragon 615. It's got a octa-core, well, it's got two quad-cores. It's got 1.5 GHz Cortex-A53 and also a quad-core 1 GHz Cortex-A53. It's got an Adreno 405 GPU and it has 2 GB of built-in RAM. It does have double tap to wake. I found it not always that reliable. Well, quite often it was on my bedside table and I would tap there, so I'm going to hit it quite hard this time. So you have to give it quite a thump. Having said that, when I was at the gym this morning, when I remembered to use the tap to wake, actually I think it worked pretty much every time with when I was holding it. And so, and I'm a big fan of tap to wake. Just mainly because, well, I mean, it doesn't help on this particular device. I'm used to having the volume above the power above the volume. See, the amount of times I kept pressing the volume keys trying to turn the device on, far too many. It does have NFC built in as well, which you wouldn't necessarily expect for a device that only costs now £99. I bought this at 125. 2 days later, they drop it to £99. I bought it online. But Vodafone wouldn't refund me the £26 difference. They would rather they refund me the whole device. I send it back to them, which I do, which is a shame because I would quite like to have kept hold of it to test against other devices. But I'm not going to send it back and then buy the device again. It seems a bit silly. Anyway, Vodafone's loss, I guess. I have read comment online that the vibration of the notification motor is a little bit weak. I wouldn't say I've noticed that. I mean, I don't get a lot of notifications, but I've generally felt them when it's come in. But I had seen, well, at least one person, maybe even two, saying that they struggled with that. So let's move on to the camera. So I mentioned the rear-facing camera is 13 megapixels. Generally, I would say it produced pretty good photos. No real issues. I mean, they're not as crisp and as sharp as the top-end devices on the market that will cost you £400 to £600. But at the same time, they weren't particularly awful, that they were embarrassing to post on the internet or anything. If you're just a casual sort of sticking snaps on Facebook or Instagram, actually, I think it's just fine. Generally, you know, in good lighting conditions, it's nice, bright, vibrant colours. Just lacked a little bit of detail. The front-facing camera, I only actually took one or two with that, unfortunately, but they look fine. No real issues there. Again, if it's not for a print to go up on your wall, I think generally it's going to be okay. There are some interesting filters. So we see here the app. I mean, I wasn't a massive fan of the app, the camera app that comes with it, but it's, you know, it's okay. So we've got some filters here. We can see, I quite like the mosaic one. Took a picture with that. Then you get sepia, you get warm look and all those, and fisheye and comics. So they're sort of quite interesting, I guess. You can see here we've also, it was an HDR mode as you would expect. There's a panorama mode. There's a smile detection for selfies, so it literally will wait for you to smile and it takes the picture straight away when you do. That's quite good, I think. I quite like that. It worked. Even I was slouching on my couch when I tried it, so I can't post the pictures. They didn't look good. They really didn't. So yeah, I mean the camera's okay. The video seemed a little shaky. There's not optical image stabilization, and I think that's quite apparent when you watch some of the footage. Again, not a real problem. There's, you know, it's okay. It's reasonable. It's not your top end device footage, but it's for a £99 device. It's kind of probably slightly better than you would expect, I suppose. I couldn't seem to recreate it, but I'm sure when I was taking one picture, it gave me kind of a false horizon. I'm sure I saw it. At the time I was trying to take a comparison with the Moto G, so I'm not really sure what I did or how it, because as you just saw then, it didn't appear then. So I'm not sure what I did to get that or what circumstances that then arrives. But you might see that pop up at some point. So we'll see that it is here. You see it's running version 5.0.2, which is Lollipop, of course, but it's not the newest version of Lollipop 5.1, and obviously we've got it Marshmallow on its way in the next few weeks. Well, by the time you're watching this, it might even be out. I have heard that 5.1 literally is only a week or two away. It was on some forum somewhere saying that it is coming. It is very much kind of a vanilla Android, though, which I like. I think a lot of people do. There's a little bit of bloat, but most of it I've been able to. I think there were maybe about 8 apps in all, but I've removed most of them. Some of the others I've left. I think someone said to me the only one you can't remove is updates. So probably, yeah. You see, I've got an uninstall option for Smart Tips. Smart Tips is handy for people that are new to Android. Actually, it tells you about swiping things away. Look, which you can do. Understand the function keys. Tap here to learn about the keyboard. The keyboard I'll mention at this point then as well, actually. So it's a stock sort of AOSP keyboard, which means there's no swipe. It's not even in the settings anywhere. I mean, it's eSwip. It's a good responsive keyboard. If I can see, I can't really see what I'm typing, unfortunately. It is a good responsive keyboard. No real issues with it, apart from I really do miss the swipe. So yeah, other bits to teach you about. So if you don't know a notification drawer, this is how a notification drawer works. Okay. Zooming, this is how zooming works. So I like it. It's nice if you bought one for your mum or something, perhaps, and she didn't really know about phones. She could go through that to learn about it. That's what I just did, sorry. Discover is another Vodafone thing. There was one I was looking at, kind of things for sale. So yeah, this is interesting. It's got like status information in there and phone status as well. So you can change it to turn. I'm not sure why you would want to go all the way into this. And there's other bit, yeah, whatever. But generally, it's pretty stock Android, which I think most people will appreciate. It's certainly slick and smooth, as hopefully you've seen while I've been using it just now. I can't say that I've really noticed any stutter or lag. Well, you might expect, because it's got 8 flaming cores. Why would it stutter or lag? 8 cores and 2 gig of RAM. But just to reiterate, you can get it for £99. You know, that's to me, that's fantastic performance with a fantastic screen for just £99. The battery is a non-removable Li-ion 3000 milliamp hour battery. It scored top of the middle, I think it was, in my tests. Did well, did good. Some people report it as being amazing. They get 4 hours screen time, etc., etc. I'm not that heavy a user, so in my usage, I would generally get home from work after. So it's been I've charged kind of, let's say, 10 or 11 hours. I get home from work, and it's still in the high 70s, like 78% or something like that. Which, you know, that's pretty good. I don't think you can ask for that much more. I think if you needed it to, it would get through 2 days of use. It doesn't have wireless charging and it doesn't have fast charging, but for £99, what can you expect? Like I say, it's got a good battery, so get it fully charged, it should last you plenty enough. Excuse me, hiccups. So in conclusion, it reminds me a little bit of the Moto G. I remember when I first got the first gen Moto G, I couldn't quite believe for the price, the performance that it gave. And it reminds me of that, but it does have a slightly better camera than the Moto G had. Obviously, this is 2 years on from the Moto G, but just a similar kind of feeling of, wow, this is really good value. You know, I think it's got a fantastic screen, very vibrant, good colours, good strength, brightness. The camera is okay. I would say it's average, so it's not poor. It's just average. It's got good to great battery life. I think it's a nice design. It's got a good feel. So the only real issues, I wouldn't say the camera's an issue, no. So the only real issues perhaps is the speaker, and that won't bother some people at all. Although I like to use the phone and just hit the speaker when I'm on the phone to people. So when I was speaking to Vodafone, it was actually occasionally it was hard to understand what the lady was saying. Now that could be because I was talking to a call center, God knows where, but I've not particularly had that issue when I've spoke to people on the phone before. But that would be the only issues that I would say. But all around, for £99, I think it really is a good purchase. I did put it head-to-head against the Moto G 3rd Gen in my usual test, and the Moto G 3rd Gen did win pretty much all of them, apart from the benchmarking. But then the Moto G 3rd Gen, even though it's got lower specs, really, it does cost £50 or so more, so I guess you would expect it to beat a £99 device. But actually, in day-to-day use, I think they're pretty much, they're very much on par, really. And I guess then it just comes down to the form factor. Do you want the large 5.5-inch screen, or do you prefer the smaller Moto G? Was it 5-inch? I can't remember. So that, if you were trying to make that decision, that might be the deciding factor. But I really do think for £99, the quality that you get, the performance, the slick, smooth, it's all very good for that price. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the Vodafone Smart Ultra 6. Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out the other. I have done some head-to-heads and video comparisons and just some straight-up video samples. There are other videos, so check those out too. My name's Andy. I'll catch you all again soon.